Welcome to the Q&A show 47 here at Inify Endurance. We have another pack show for you, so let's get going. Let's get straight into it. First question ties in nicely with a usual shout out I give at the start of the show, so I'll answer it as a question. I honestly didn't put this one in, it was asked. And it's from @JabryWild, and he asks, the importance of strong core for runners. Will weak abs cause tight hips and a poor posture? What are your recommendations? Obviously, doing a terrible job at marketing Run Strong, because that is exactly what we have, a program for runners to get stronger, to help with exactly the issues that he is talking about here. So a strong core for runners is essential. It's absolutely needed if you want to stay nice and tall, you want to stay upright, you want to stay strong while you're running. If you don't, then you'll tend to pick up other injuries around the hip areas. You pick up weird gait patterns. You can get poor posture through bad shoulders and all the things that JabryWild is talking about here. So it might not be that the weak abs is causing the tight hips, but it certainly could be one of the factors. So the hip flexors play a huge role in running. They act as a stretch cord, as a spring. They act to stabilize the pelvis, but they should be doing that alongside the stomach muscles as well, particularly rectus abdominis and the deeper core muscles. So if they are weak, then your hip musculature will have to work a little bit more to cover what the abs aren't doing. So yeah, it could certainly be a cause of it. And as I said there, it can also cause that poor posture position too. What we tend to see mostly in runners is they're not actually knowing what core exercises to do and just going out and doing sit-ups and doing very one plane of movement, which tends to be forward and concentric. And actually, that's not always best. If you might have very strong abs, but only the sort of beach abs, as we call it, so rectus abdominis, which sits at the front there, your six-pack. And if they're pulling you constantly forward, that can cause you to obviously slouch and then tight at the chest and tight around the shoulders. So we want to be working, and this is exactly what Run Strong does, is it works the whole transverse plane of your abdominals. So you're going to do deep core work, the real stabilizing muscles of your spine and hips. You will do obliques, which are your more superficial core work. So they work on helping with anti-rotation and making sure that you can stay in one line and you're not veering off left and right. You're working the back core of your muscles. You're working glutes, which we class as a core muscle, obviously, as well as a hip muscle. But you want to be thinking as the core as a whole complex, and you want to be thinking when you're running, how are you using that huge trunk essentially to help you to move forward and faster. And this is exactly what we get through in Run Strong. So that's my recommendation, mate. We're now on to month 4. Month 5 comes out this month coming, so in July. I recommend you start at month 1 and build your way through. It's all progressive. It can all be done anywhere. You just need either a very a light set of kettlebells. You can use it in a gym. You know, if you want to get the nice soft boxes to do some of the plyo work on, a good mat you need, some bands. But also people do this and they're traveling. I get videos and pictures from people who are traveling to like hotel rooms and haven't got the best equipment, but they're still finding ways to get it done. You can use water bottles for the balance work, all sorts. So have a look. You get 3 to 4 sessions in your week, 1 posture, 1 stability, a power, and you get a flexibility session. And then some months stability and posture partner up. So you have a stability and posture session, a power session, and a flexibility session. But either way, you're working exactly what you need as a runner and triathlete, possibly if you're thinking of strength work for triathlon too. Obviously, the run section. Cool. Well, that is a pretty comprehensive answer and another cell of Run Strong. We will now move on to every week we get a question from this guy, and they're always good. They always make me think. And it's from @sad.z. And he asks, if I burn X amount of calories in a run, should I intake equal calories right after or split pre and post? Good question. I think people understand they need to refuel after running. You need to put back into the tank what you've emptied. Obviously, if you want to lose weight, then you need to make that a deficit. So people who run to lose weight will try and work out how much they have run, how much calories they've burnt while running, and then try not to eat as much. From a performance point of view, which I'm going to assume Sad is asking about, we want to be thinking this as a recovery. So how are you going to best get absorption of the food that you're having post training into your system. This kind of works in some different ways. So it depends how far you've run. It depends the conditions you've run in. I would say hydration takes priority. So you want to be making sure that you take back in at least 1.5 times the fluid that you have lost on that run. And I'm thinking more now here in Dubai, where it's very much, well, it's summer, it's 40 degrees in the day, people are getting out early to run, and it's still 30, 35. I was on the bike this morning, and it's 35 at 5:30 in the morning. And yeah, hydration is absolutely number one. And a lot of people actually lose that sense of hunger in the heat because the body thinks more about replacing the fluid that it's lost. As far as splitting it pre and post, again, it's really difficult to say. You've got to go from experience, and you've also got to be a little bit smart, think about it a bit more logically. So you obviously don't want to be having a massive meal before you go out training. So you might want to split it so that you're having like 1/3 of the calories that you think you're going to burn before the run and 2/3 after. If you're running fasted, then you want to think about splitting it into 2 meals after. But you want to eat sort of to a point where you're not feeling sick, certainly, and you want to make sure that post-recovery meal is high in protein and carbohydrates at about a pretty good way to go for is a 2-to-1 ratio. So if you have 20 grams of carbohydrates, you're having 10 grams of protein. Tend to be around 20 to 25 grams of protein is what the body likes to absorb. So in which case, if you think about that, it's about 50 grams of carbohydrates to 25 grams of protein. That's a pretty good recovery meal right there. Then later on, as you've settled things down and you're well into your recovery phase, you want to add in, again, a little bit of protein, maybe some carbohydrates if you're fueling for a session later in the day or tomorrow, and then add in also your fats, which you'll get probably if you're eating good sources of carbohydrates and proteins, your fats will just naturally come in anyway. So I hope that helps, mate. We're going to move on to the next question, which is from @Spando75, Spencer, rider of Frankie's, bit of a legend. He asks, what exercise do you recommend when suffering with calf issues and running? He's asked this, I think, a little bit tongue-in-cheek, as that's something I'm going through right now is some calf issues. And I'm sort of absolutely doing everything I can. Apart from the usual things like keeping your calf loose, keeping your hamstrings loose, knee-to-wall stuff, eccentric strengthening of the calf muscles is important. So drop heel from a step, nice and low. You can weight it up if you want. If you're feeling like you're coming back from injury and you're feeling a bit stronger, you can add in a little bit more weight and slowly let that heel drop, keeping the toe up. You want to avoid doing anything too much concentrically, like plyometrics, quite soon after the injury. You want to at least wait 3 to 4 weeks after that. The new addition that I am doing the past week has been aqua jogging. That seems to help me activate a bit more about my glutes and hamstrings and get me working through the water with the leg. And I think one of the reasons that calves do go is they get overloaded. Footwear, check your shoes. Where are you wearing on your feet? How are you landing? That'll give you an idea. Maybe you need to change your shoes more often than you thought. There's a lot of ways to tackle this. And I actually think I could do a whole separate 10 minutes on calf injuries. But if I was to give my top 3 recommendations, it would be do not come back too soon. If you feel like it's giving you problems, take your time to rest it and let it heal. Check your shoes. Check the patterns of your tread on your shoes and work out what that's making your gait do. Possibly get a gait analysis. And the third one is consistent foam rolling and loosening of the muscles above, on and below the calf. So that is your feet. That's obviously your gastrocnemius. That's stretching out your soleus, keeping the Achilles happy, and then your hamstrings, both medial and on the outside as well, your lateral hamstrings, just making sure that IT band doesn't get too tight, because if your knee is going in and out, that will cause issues there as well. Cool, last question of the week, and it's a little bit rushed. It's from @RagadGuma, who you can actually see on the Adidas Runners profile page. It's running for the oceans on the weekend, which is awesome. And she asks, what's your advice on preparing to run without music? I have such simple advice here for you, Ragad. Don't give yourself any option. Just leave the music at home, go run, enjoy the sounds of your breath, your heart rate, all the traffic that's going on around you. If you're at Track Tuesday, me shouting at you, just don't give yourself an option. Leave it. Just not even there. It's not even a consideration for you to have. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that show. We'll see you again next week.